Is the Canon C200 worth buying over a mirrorless camera for video in 2024? Now, the reason I think personally that the Canon C200, for example, for me is worth an upgrade over the R6 and what I'm currently shooting on right now is the feature set. Straight away you can see obviously we have a multitude of buttons on the side, all custom mapped etc for me personally, but you can put them in any order that you'd like. You also have record buttons here, we have them on the top handle as well, as you can see just over there. As you can see as well, we do have a V-mount battery plugged in on a distribution plate here, plugged into the 2-pin LEMO on the back of the camera. It's just a more secure connection because you need to physically release the pin and then that's it, it's out of the camera, so you won't be pulling it out by accident. Another thing is form factor, so this camera being a bit bigger than the R6 and a bit wider and longer etc, as you get a more balanced feel, so when it's in the hand and you have your hand on the hand grip, and I'll take it off of this tripod just now. You can see you can put your hand in the grip and you have the camera in hand and it's a lot more balanced etc, and you can push the battery plate up against the back here and you can walk around and use the LCD monitor, or you can use the EVF which is on the top there, which I would rather not have, and there's another story for another day on why I have one on this camera. Another big thing about recording on the R6 is the overheating issue. Now, I don't experience it a lot, I only really experience it if I'm indoors and it's quite warm already. We just wrapped a day shooting a feature film just the other weekend, and inside the place we were filming I kept getting the warning light, and I've never had the camera cut out on me or stop me from recording with that warning, but this time it actually did, and the little numbers at the top were actually red and it wouldn't let me record, so I had to stand there with the first AC and the clapperboard and fan the camera until it cooled down a bit, enough for me to record. Another big advantage of the C200 is the RAW capability. Now, like the C70 that came out a couple of years after this, which gets the RAW and RAW Lite, this just gets you the Canon RAW, so you are shooting a fair bit of data through the CF card. Now for me, I've went the route of buying an SSD reader in order to plug into the CFast port so I can record straight from the camera to this SSD, which you otherwise couldn't on like the C70 for example. Getting them is quite hard nowadays. You can find them on eBay, which is where I got this one. It's about £120 etc. Zyte did do one, but trying to get one off their website just now, it wasn't working when I went to buy it, so I just went elsewhere. Now, as you can see, the card door will actually close over and just stay open at the top just a little bit. It will still record, and obviously if you're recording outside and it maybe happens to rain, I would just advise putting a small bit of black tape just over the top of that, just to save anything leaking in, but personally not had any issue with it yet. Now, an advantage the R6 does have over the C200 is the fact that it's full frame. So the C200 is Super 35, so you will have that crop factor when you put the lens on the front. For example, my 17 to 35 is roughly like a 26 to 55-ish. I'm not really sure on the math, I need to go and check, but it's around that 25-ish to 55-ish focal range, so you do have to bear that in mind. However, that does mean you can use a long lens and you get a lot further reach. One big downside to something on the cinema camera line, whether it's from Sony, Canon, Blackmagic, RA, etc., all the big camera manufacturers that do the Cineline stuff, is things are expensive, and I mean really expensive. The cage for the R6 was £100. Actually I think it was on sale, so I think I got it for about £85. However, the cage for the C200 is £500 for a top plate, a base plate and two thin sides. It's £500, which is absolutely nuts. Something from Zacuto, for example, I've got a top plate arriving today, but the top plate alone is £200. You just have to think of the cost of things when you get into this line of camera. Another reason I think the C200 is worth it over shooting on the R6, from personal experience, again I've almost wrapped a feature film that I shot on the R6, is the ports on the back of the camera. Now you can see here that you have a multitude of ports, your SDI, your LEMO pin for your power etc, two full-size XLRs as well. Now that's a big thing when you're shooting professional audio. You can get much better quality microphones that take XLR and phantom power, unlike the stuff that you maybe record with on the 3.5mm jack. And then when you move the battery plate that I have here back, you do have options to the dual SD cards as well as the audio status, which is on a little swivel hinge. A few more reasons why something like the C200 is much better than a mirrorless camera for video is the built-in NDs. Now, right now you would have to screw an ND onto the front of this lens. However, with the C200, we do have the ND plus and minus buttons on the side there. So if we are running a polarizer and we go outside, say you're shooting a documentary type style, we go outside, it's obviously a lot brighter, then just up the ND internally and you don't have to screw anything onto the lens, and it's just right there in front of you. As well as the internal NDs, we do have waveform, which is a lot better than the little light bar you normally get on the camera that you're used to seeing, the little thing that goes left and right. The waveform is just so much more accurate and a lot more true to what the camera is seeing. So relying on that waveform is going to get you the best exposure you can do. And it's just an extra tool to help the professional or even the budding videographer, etc. just nail their exposure. One other thing about shooting on something like the C200 is public perception. So if you walk up to a set and you have, say, just the R6 in its body only form really, there will be a difference in perception when you rock up with something like this, for example. As you can see, it's a lot bigger, it just looks more professional, and it's unfortunate that that's the case because you can do just as good a work as you can do with the R6 as you can with this. Obviously they have the different places and have the different looks, however public perception will just automatically think the bigger the camera, the more professional the person, which unfortunately is the world we live in. And the last great feature that I can talk about with the C200 is the fact that it has dual pixel autofocus. Now, I'm used to it again with the R6 having the face tracking, etc. When I was doing my research to find a camera to replace the R6 in the video side of things, I really did want good autofocus, because if I'm shooting a lot of documentary stuff, I don't want to be pulling focus with a hand. I want to just stick to a face and track and follow the subject around, which the camera does very well. So it does have the face priority and face only tracking modes, as well as your continuous autofocus, and you can move that around with the touchscreen also. So even though it's from 2017, it still packs an absolute punch in terms of features, and the quality of the autofocus, etc. is fantastic. It's Canon's dual pixel AF, it's going to be good. It's up there with, again, the C70, the R6, and granted these new mirrorless cameras will have obvious advantages to the AF. However, again, I've got to give it to the camera being from 2017. It's an absolute powerhouse in terms of a run and gun documentary style camera. One thing that I will mention, because it's kind of hard to decipher, it doesn't really tell you on the Canon website, and when you watch videos it doesn't really tell you much either. You maybe get one part from one video and one part from another to kind of piece it together. However, I'll tell you just in the one go, if you're in RAW, you're shooting RAW 24 FPS, you are in C-Log2. It's just how it is. You can't monitor it, so when you're going into your gamma and your preset, it will say C-Log3, but that's just what you're viewing. It is C-Log2, and when you put it into your post-production like DaVinci Resolve, etc., you will have the option obviously to click C-Log2 and change all your parameters like your white balance and your ISO in post, because you've shot in RAW. Just a little disclaimer there, just because not a lot of people know that and it's kind of hard to find the information. So guys, I'm just going to end it there. It was just a quick video. I want to get back into doing more YouTube, so I thought why not start with a quick video on the C200 and join the slurry of videos all over the internet about the camera in 2024. But as I said, I just want to get back into doing YouTube again, get back in front of the camera instead of behind it all the time, and just put some videos out that I enjoy, and maybe things that you didn't know if you're even looking to buy a C200, for example.